Hey, it's a home collector here, and today's video I want to talk to you guys about this mess kit that I got recently. As you can see here, it's got a little bit of trench art on it, a castle for the Engineer Corps, JHC, 515th Engineers, or, well, JHG, and then on the back here, JHC, Company B, 515th Engineers. Now, all in all, it's not a particularly exciting piece of trench art, but it has a great history behind it, because the 515th Engineer Service Battalion, I believe they actually are. Yeah, 515th Engineer Service Battalion was an African-American unit that served in France during World War I. And I thought that was pretty cool when I found it. Seller wasn't asking a whole lot for it, so I decided to buy it. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a lot on the 515th Engineer Service Battalion. They were apparently formed in January of 1918, and I found evidence that apparently there was a pneumonia outbreak at the camp that they were at, Camp Zachary Taylor, and that they were quarantined there in April. They did eventually make it over to France and served in the Service of Supply Troops, which was basically like this logistical arm of the AEF that was trying to get supplies to the front. And it was divided into three basic sections. You had the advanced section that was headquartered in Neufchâteau, France, and they were basically ones getting the supplies up to where the operations were actually happening. So that was the advanced section getting supplies to the front. The intermediate section was essentially the rest of France between the front and the ports, and then the base sections were areas by the coast. Also, I believe there was one in England that were responsible for actually taking in the supplies and troops to begin with. Then they passed them off to the intermediate section. The intermediate section would pass them off to the advanced section to get those to the front. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any record of which part of the service of supply line that the 515th served in. But we can imagine they were doing a lot of logistical work. During World War I, of course, the Army was still segregated, and there were very few frontline combat African-American units. As you can imagine, racial tensions were high back then, and there were a lot of officers who were very nervous about the idea of arming large numbers of African Americans. So, like I said, very few of them ended up being in combat units. Most of them ended up in engineer logistic units like the 515th. And, so, stuff from those units isn't something you see every day, which is one of the reasons I wanted to get it. And interestingly enough, the seller was able to provide a copy of the roster for Company B of the 515th Engineers. And, like I said, it's kind of hard to see who this belonged to because it says JHG on the front, and then if we go to the back here, it says JHC. And there are two potential matches on this list. We have here a John Henry Collins, a private from Louisville, Kentucky, or potentially a John Herschel Goodnight from Franklin, Kentucky. So unfortunately, we don't know which of those two it was, but one of those men would have been the ones who actually had this mess kit and used it. So obviously, the unit did not survive after the war. When the war was over, they were demobilized at Camp Gordon in Georgia, and that was pretty much the end of the unit. So overall, it's not a very visually exciting piece, but it tells a great story. And like I said, you don't really see a lot of stuff from the African-American units that were in World War I, so it was a really cool piece. I wanted to grab it and share it with you guys. So hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have any comments, please leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you all for watching. Happy collecting, and I'll see you all again very soon.